Okay, Matt, we are back again. Finally had some football for each of our teams once again. Hope you had a good Thanksgiving weekend. I
Oh, it
think
was a good Thanksgiving weekend for me
good
all
food.
around.
Um, Football teams did well for both of us. Actually, all around, really. Just a pretty solid Thanksgiving weekend, I'd say. I had to work Black Friday, but
Yeah, I did not.
still was able to follow the game for Miami, but let's start off with Thanksgiving first. Obviously, the three games. We know the two teams that play on Thanksgiving. Um, it's just funny that your Thanksgiving is dictated on your sport, on how good the Cowboys do. But I guess that's just the reality of it, right? So, luckily, it was a good Thanksgiving this year, right? I mean, just absolutely manhandled the Commanders, which is funny because I actually thought it was going to be like a close game. Like divisional opponent and Commanders they're just weird where like you expect them to beat the bad teams and they lose to them. You expect them to lose to good teams, somehow beat them or keep it close, but nope, was not the case this Thanksgiving. It was pretty much a blowout from the start. So why don't you give us your Thanksgiving rundown of how your Cowboys did?
Well, I wouldn't say it was a blowout. I mean, 45-10, yeah, the score looks like it was pretty lopsided, but for three quarters, I was kind of nervous, I must admit, because like you said, it's a division game. This is like the classic historical Thanksgiving matchup. Well, Commanders, which were the Redskins before, and the Cowboys. This is like the historic matchup. They play all the time on Thanksgiving back in the good old days. And I was expecting Washington to kind of come out, take their shots. They're going to put up points, move the ball, and it was really about how Dak and the offense can just counteract that and be more explosive than them. And to some degree, they started off pretty well, I would say. Um, Dak was a little shaky to start. He did miss CeeDee Lamb for an open touchdown on the first drive. I was like, oh no, is this going to really be the day where he comes back down to earth and the Commanders just kind of linger around? Yeah, that was kind of the feeling I got early. But once we got that first touchdown with Rico Dell getting into the end zone, that kind of really opened up Dak. He started hitting on the deep balls and he connected with Brandon Cooks in the second quarter. And then really, they had a nice 2-minute drive to close the half. And I thought that was such a huge momentum swing because Washington, they scored a touchdown previously. So they were kind of getting that momentum. They're hanging around by halftime, but Dallas kind of knocked them back a little bit with a nice 2-minute drive. A little bit lucky. It was a tip ball that Jalen Brooks ended up catching. And then Tony Pollard finishing off that drive. But then, the third quarter was just a little, slugfest, I guess. Both teams couldn't really get that big conversion. Dallas had a couple critical fourth down stops. Tony Romo was kind of not ripping into Washington, but he was really pushing for Washington to do a modified tush push because there was multiple instances where it's 3rd and 1, 4th and 1, and they line up in the shotgun. And Tony Romo is like, if it's 3rd and 1, you just need to muscle them. Just do what Philly does, basically. And, Washington, with Sam Howell leading the league in passing at this point, they line up in shotgun. They just throw it around. They take a deep shot on 3rd and 1. So it's like, I guess I could say thank you, Ron Rivera, for making those kind of not foolish decisions, but a decision that kind of let us off the hook a little bit. Um, but the fourth quarter is what the Cowboys have been about this season. Their nuclear capability to just break a game open, probably the best in the league, I would say. They put up points, right? Dak gets hot, he finds CD, and then it's the defense that just really just takes this team to another level. When they turn the ball over, they get pressure with Parsons. Hankins has been getting in there all night. And then obviously, the record-setting interception by Deron Bland, he gets a pick six to really cap off the night. I mean, his fifth pick six of the
Five
season,
is in I that's
NFL
crazy.
record.
We're not
And
even we're only what 11 games in, 10 games in.
what is the
Crazy.
record? 8-3. So there you got six more games to go, which is absurd. He might get another two more at this rate. I don't know. But that's what really was kind of the joy of Thanksgiving was, it was a classic Cowboys Commanders rivalry game for three quarters, just two teams dueling it out, right? Close game. And then the Cowboys finally said, we're the better team. Let's put these guys away. And on a historical note, it was such a sweet interception. I mean, you could just see the joy on everybody's reactions on the sidelines. They showed Dan Quinn on the broadcast. He was just screaming out of his mind in the booth, you know, for his guy. So that was really, you know, what made it so special. I think it was a historical win for Dallas. And at the time, you're one game back in the win column behind Philadelphia. But obviously, that's not the case. But we'll talk about that game later on. But I mean, this game really, I think the Dallas defense, they're kind of discovering some guys. Obviously, Deron Bland, a young guy, kind of making a name for himself this year. But Osa Odigizua is another guy, had some critical run penetration stops. I mean, he's pretty underrated. And he was actually in a trade rumor earlier in the season when the Chris Jones saga was going on. I saw it was Osa and a first for Chris Jones, and I was like, as much as Chris Jones is that guy, I think Osa is he's something. He's something. I don't think he's going to be Chris Jones, but I just think he's such a good fit for this team, and he's really kind of anchored the interior in the trenches for us. So really, really just the overall good team win. And it was capped off by another classic Cowboys Thanksgiving, right? You get Dolly Parton performing halftime. She kind of steals the show on YouTube and Twitter compared to the first game of the Thanksgiving slate with Jack Harlow, who absolutely got roasted by Twitter with that, I guess you could say, setup or budget. But that's Detroit, right? They're not gonna throw in everything for that, and then it's Jerry World. It's got to be the star of the show. I mean, they got the cheerleaders going in with Dolly, so just the overall great, great Thanksgiving day for me. And now it's kind of that stretch where Dallas enters their gauntlet. They got 5 games against, I guess it's winning record teams starting this Thursday against Seattle. So we're really going to see what this team is capable of. And it's really good that we're kind of hitting our stride right when we get into that thick of the schedule. Because if we can come out of this 4-1, maybe a little unreasonable there, but 4-1, honestly, even 3-2 would probably get us into the playoffs at this point. But I want to see them come out, compete, and really kind of dominate a couple games just to put the naysayers to bed and get us in that stride, going into the postseason. But hey, Turkey Day is always based on the Cowboys winning or losing, and my food tasted great that day. So I'm happy. And, I'm not going to complain about this day because this is one of the best Thanksgivings I can remember. A Cowboys fan for a long time. So great win for the boys.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you had a good Thanksgiving. I was just, I was like taking it easy pretty much. I was like checking in on the games, here and there. But I was just like looking at the box scores, watching the highlights on Twitter and stuff. Kind of caught the end of the or some of the Niners one, but my focus obviously was on the next day, right? And so we'll get into the first Black Friday game on Amazon Prime now. That's going to be the new tradition. And yeah, I mean, give an overall take of that game, my Dolphins. I was pleased, obviously. Anytime, you play any divisional opponent, um, you know, in their stadium, it's going to be tough. But it was a pretty eventful game. It's 34-13, but I felt like a lot kind of happened, good and bad, for the Dolphins. So I'll start with the good, actually. I'll start with the good first. Um, Obviously we get the win, but defense, as usual, looked good as they have the past several weeks. The stronger side of the ball, right? Granted, we're playing the Jets, who have not looked good. Tim Boyle gets the start. He couldn't do really anything all game, other than one drive at the end of the game. So, but defense did their job, took care of business there. Um, and offensively, I thought for the most part, um, execution was pretty good, um, but was still not a clean game that I would have liked to see. So it's weird because it's 8-3, but it was an ugly win, I thought, even though it was 34-13, but I still think ugly win for these reasons. So a couple things I want to get to. First, what I feel is the biggest blow for our team. We lose Jalen Phillips. I mean, he was coming on in his third year as across Bradley Chubb, like that 1-2 punch that they provide. Um, all seems like he makes a timely play, whether it's a sack, a big tackle for loss, fumble. He had a pick, right? And so it's just think like we're gonna miss him. Um, Out with an Achilles, you could see it on the video. I just like when they showed the replay, I was so sick to my stomach. Um, because it's literally the Aaron Rodgers Achilles tear all over again. But it was like so much more violent. Like you could see his snap so much clearer than Rodgers' one. So I knew instantly what it was. For it to happen like more than midway through the season, it's gonna take a while. But hopefully he gets the same surgery that Rodgers gets. And he's ready to go for next year because I don't think he's coming back this year, even for playoffs or anything. Yeah, he's going to be out for a while. So hopefully we can get him healthy for next year. But yeah, prayers to Jalen. Hopefully, hoping for a speedy recovery there. Going off of that, can we change MetLife Stadium because this is getting ridiculous at this point? I mean, it's one thing if it happens to, you know, uh, just guys in general, but it's happening to superstars, right? I mean, Aaron Rodgers, your own quarterback, tears his Achilles on your field. Is that not prompt enough to go get grass? I don't understand why we can't get grass for NFL players when it seems like a majority of them complain about it, right? Let's get rid of the turf. Let's keep, your most. Let's think of it as a business thing, right? The NFL. What is your most valuable asset? Your superstars, your quarterbacks. Hey, let's keep them on the field. And if we can do that by maybe just putting in grass, wow, like maybe I don't understand something, but to me that seems like a worthwhile investment. And so that's something I would like to see moving forward. Um, but going off the Jalen Phillips injury, football wise, gonna need to see Andrew Van Ginkel step up, who has been pretty good for us this year when he's been in that edge rusher role. But Emmanuel Ogba, who we're paying, I think like 13 to 14 million this year alone. He hasn't seen a lot of the snaps because of Jalen Phillips and Bradley Chubb, but looking to see him step up for us down the stretch run that we have. Hopefully, he can be that same productive pass rusher that he was last year and a couple years ago. So looking for him to step up big there. And I'll get to the offensive side of the ball now. So offensively, got to talk about Tua, right? Crazy because you see the two picks and they were bad. Like the first one, the pick six, he was late on his check down, tries to hit, his guy in the flat, defender is all over it because he's late, takes it to the house. Second one, trying to force it again, just trying to get something going, points before the half. He tries to force it into Tyreek. The ball is behind. that one, I mean, I get kind of like it's towards the end of the half. You're just trying to force something to your guy to make a play. Still to me, like a bad pick. I thought the first one was way worse though, because that's like a mental one. The physical ones, the overthrows, the underthrows, trying to force something in, going into the half, like you can live with those, but you cannot have the mental lapses ones, right? Especially in big games against an opponent who had nothing going offensively. That was like kind of the big thing for me. So that's addressing the picks. Um, Although the second one obviously sets up Javon Holland to go 99 yards. Uh, that is will forever be mentioned in Black Friday games moving forward, I think. But typical Jets, right, Matt? I mean, to go on, you get the pick six and you maybe can have some momentum going in to halftime. Just chuck a Hail Mary. Who knows what could happen. You're thinking worst case, it's an incomplete pass, right? Or it's picked, he's tackled, right? Lo and behold, leave it to the Jets. Add another one to their repertoire of infamous blunders in the NFL. They're calling it the Hail Mary now, I think. I mean, I can't
And
wait
they
for the
had
hard knock.
the butt fumble Thanksgiving
Had the butt
anniversary.
fumble. Now you have the Hail Mary. I mean, I can't wait for Hard Knocks to come out this week and see like everything that was going on the Javon Holland pick six. I mean, he took in 99 yards, no skill players. It's kind of like the Alabama against Auburn one, right? And we will get to Alabama and Auburn later too. Another memorable one moment for them. But anyway,
What?
yeah, just a great play by Javon. Really like stole any momentum the Jets had, right? Because you get the pick six, oh man, it's 10-6, right? Should have been 10-7. They missed extra point, of course, but it's 10-6. And it's like, oh man, maybe they have a chance to like even kick a field goal or something. I don't know. You get a pass interference, maybe, right, in the end zone. Maybe that gives you a chance. You never know what could happen, right? On one of those Hail Marys. And so I'm thinking, man, if it's 10-9 or even they take the lead, one lucky bounce and Garrett Wilson's down there, you never know what he can do. But Javon really just made me feel a lot better going into the half. I'm like watching it unfold. I'm like, wait, there's only linemen back there. Uh, of course, he jukes out Tim Boyle, takes it to the house. I'm like, oh my goodness, that like I feel like that took all the pressure off the Dolphins and they went to go play free in the second half. Tua still had another fumble, but that was like kind of an exchange thing um, with a new running back in there. Of course, that's another turnover that's gonna happen. But to me, um, the they had a 9-minute drive, Matt, in the second half. I think that one really put the game away to put it, they went up 27-6. Um, and that was what I like to see offensively. That long drive, grind it out, grind clock. Um, One of their more impressive drives on the year, I thought. And overall, feeling pretty good, sitting at 8-3. Obviously, we still have some games we need to take care of before we get to our gauntlet run. But I must say, the situational third and fourth down and one or two play calling and execution, I think needs to be improved. As good as Mike has been this year, he just does not like to run on third and one, on fourth and one. I don't know if it's because he believes in Tua to make the right read, but our running game has been good. Our offensive line has been good in short yardage, I feel like, when we need it. Mostert, Jeff Wilson, he's more of that physical 1 to 2 yard dive kind of backs. And that's just something that I would like to see him trust a little bit more. Because off of that, when that starts to get successful, right, you can run the play action off of that, run the bootleg off of that. But I want to see them establish that physicality of being I'm going to run it down your throat on third and one, on fourth and one, and show that we can get the yards this way. right? Um, that that's just another caveat, but I'll take the win. Happy about it. Tua, obviously, some things to clean up, um, but not gonna overreact just yet. They were pretty bad. I felt like the rest of the game he played pretty clean, other than really those two mental mistakes. So, um, I mean, the Jets defense is good too. You can't take that away from them as well. They have given a bunch of people problems this year, and I mean, even beat the Eagles. They're the one team that beat the Eagles this year somehow, right? So, um, you take the win, but yeah, looking forward, want to see some stuff get cleaned up there. Um, but we'll look on to next week. I think we play the Commanders next week, so hopefully, yeah, play the Commanders. Hopefully, we take care of business there for my sake and for your sake to just bury them, right? So,
I think they're
uh,
kind of, I
yeah,
don't
pretty
know.
much
I'm kind
buried.
of writing them off already.
Yeah,
But they
yeah.
are sneaky because they can move the ball. And they moved the ball against Dallas. So I don't know. You guys are going to have to deal with Sam Howell throwing it like 50 times a game.
Yeah, that's true. But I will say, I think our um, pass defense with Jalen Ramsey now back, um, yeah, it'll be a good it'll still be a good test. It can't take them lightly, obviously, but expecting them to take care of business and move forward. But since I brought up the Eagles really quick, we need to get into pretty much the game of the week, right? Bills at the Eagles. I got the better outcome from this game than you. You needed the Eagles to lose. I needed the Bills to lose. Luckily, Jalen Hurts was able to pull it out because now the Bills are 6-6. But let's get into the game itself, Matt. So I had baseball during the game, so following the score. I know it was going back and forth, but I'm assuming you watched the game. Um, so
Most of it.
most of
Most
it.
of it.
So why don't you just give me your kind of takeaway from this game? Because this was really the game of the week.
I mean, this game statistically was dominated by the Bills. The Bills were doing everything. They could move up and down the field. They were stopping the Eagles really for the majority of the game until there was like a late stretch where it's like, classic Josh Allen, right? Big numbers, makes incredible plays, but he has that one turnover or like that one moment where it's like, no, Josh, don't do that. And then, sure enough, that one pick just switched. That's when I turned the game off because I was like, oh wow, the Bills, they're up 10. They're controlling the game. They look pretty good. And then, I come back 20 minutes later. I'm like, what the heck just happened? They're down 4 now. I just turned off the TV and the Eagles are winning now. But the Eagles scored, and then Josh Allen turnover, like that was the one, and then they had the quick strike touchdown, give them the lead. Like that's the thing I think that really frustrates people with Josh Allen because he's so talented, but can he play a complete game and just take you home? Because that's where we kind of see him as an elite quarterback, and that's kind of like his thing now. It's like he misses one throw or he makes a terrible turnover in a critical moment, and then it just kind of snowballs from there. But yeah, that was kind of the story of the game, at least for the Eagles offensively, because in the first half they weren't doing anything, and when they did something, they get bailed out, and then vice versa on the defensive end. They just get bailed out every time the Bills go down the field. Oh, seems like some kind of penalty is being called on the Bills, or no penalty is being called on the Eagles. They said in the first half there was 10 penalties on the Bill. 10 penalties. Like that's absurd. And the Eagles had one penalty for 5 yards. But I think the most egregious one, and this was like I'm not even a Bills fan, but I would be so upset. And I was very upset when I saw this because I was cheering against the Eagles. It was the Josh Allen quote unquote horse collar. So the Bills, they have a chance, they're like on the 6 yard line, golden chance to score a touchdown. I think that would have put them up I believe 10 at the time, 10 or 17. I'm not too sure. But basically, you score a touchdown, you can really like not really knock them out, but it's like you put a lot of pressure on the Eagles in the second half to kind of play out of their game now. They got to play from behind. And Hassan Reddick just horse collars, drags down Josh Allen, rips the jersey, pulls him down on the neck and by the throat. And Josh Allen kind of just flings the ball to the ground. But Gabe Davis was in the vicinity. And, it's kind of, it looked like a fumble toss. But at the time, they just called it incomplete. But everybody is like, where's the horse collar? Tony Romo was saying that's a horse collar. Jim Nantz said that's a horse collar, and even the CBS ref guy, I forget what his
Gene
name is.
Steratore.
Yeah, him. He's like, yep, that's a horse collar.
Yeah, when he says it, because a lot of players respect him. I know Rogers
Yeah,
talks like said before,
yeah,
like Gene was really good. So
and he's really, I think he's a really good job in the booth with Tony and Jim Nantz. I think they have good chemistry, and the fact that he said it was like, okay, where's the flag? And then the refs come in to discuss. And then it's like, okay, yeah, there's a flag. And then you look up, it's like, oh, intentional grounding offense. Like, so what should have been a horse collar turns into an intentional grounding. So then now you lose a down, you end up having to kick, and then, sure enough, right? They miss the kick. Jalen Carter gets a hand on the ball. You get no points versus 7 points. I think
huge
really,
swing.
that was huge because I think they score and the Eagles ended up turning the ball over on their next drive. So you fumbled that. They fumbled it. Josh Allen ends up scoring on that drive. That's a 14-point swing right into the half. That's like knockout blow, honestly. And the fact that, it comes down to calls like that where it's really obvious. Like all these Eagle fans saying, oh yeah, whatever,
Oh, they're
yada yada yada.
mad. They're
Yeah, they're
so mad.
mad. Yeah, keep coming at us because, we're not going to back down. We're not scared of you guys, especially me. I ain't scared of you
Yeah,
clowns.
I they took what I said completely out of context, by the way. Like I was just it honestly cracked me up. It makes me laugh so hard anytime and I don't hate the Eagles, honestly. I don't. All I said was it just seemed like they were getting lucky in some of these games. I literally said I don't have any logic or reasoning behind it. That's just my view of the situation. Here come all these Eagle fans coming after me. Oh, you don't know, blah blah blah. Like they still have one of the best defenses. They have to hold. Blah. I was like, oh my god, did you listen to what I said? So yeah, I think it's just funny. I guess Eagles just they get react like their fans love to react to stuff. I guess maybe that's why Skip, he really goes at them. And he calls them lucky and stuff because he knows it'll like rile them up. So I think
Yeah,
I
but
finally get it now.
yeah, but in Skip's defense, he's not wrong. Like any other, like, are you like, how can you not say that's a horse collar?
That
Josh
one was
Allen's
pretty
jersey
bad.
is ripped. It like it's ripped off his shoulder pads. And the fact that, okay, one, you don't call it a horse collar, but you somehow turn that into an intentional grounding when Gabe Davis is literally 2 feet in front of the ball. Yeah, the ball didn't go to the line of scrimmage, but there's a receiver in the vicinity that's clearly there that is he's there. Like there's no debate. It's shown on television, on film. So I just think you can't like this is more for the NFL's sake. You cannot have calls like that to me. And this is a big game. Like the Bills are fighting for their lives, right? The Eagles, they got the 49ers next week, then they got Dallas the following. So they're trying to, keep pace ahead of Dallas, ahead of the 49ers. Calls like that make or break games and possibly make or break seasons in terms of the Bills, honestly. That just cannot happen. And there's so many times, you know, Darius Slay. This guy, yeah, he's overrated. I don't want to hear he's the best corner in the league because a lot of times I'm watching him, he's holding, he's grabbing digs. He's the guy that got cooked on the last play, by the way, with Gabe Davis in overtime. It was just a miscommunication by Allen and Gabe Davis, which would have been a walk-off touchdown. But Slay just gets burnt, and you can see him. He knows he got burnt. He was trying to hold him. Granted, you're getting burnt. You just take the flag. But I see a lot of that. So where's the discipline in coverage? And you call this guy one of the best corners in the league? Baloney. Dallas has two corners better than him right now, Gilly and Deron Blandon. They would have had three if it was Trayvon Diggs healthy. But I just think the referees, it's getting way out of control at this point. It looks suspicious because it's always the Eagles for some reason getting all these calls at home. And I know there's a stat like they're undefeated with Sean Hockley as the head ref, like because I think he's one of the crews that has the most penalty, he throws the most penalty flags for an officiating crew. So, I just think it needs to be consistent. We say this all the time. That's all we want as fans. Nobody's going to be perfect, but it needs to be balanced. You can't have a 10-1 penalty differential in the first half. There is no way that is possible whatsoever. You cannot convince me like they had one penalty or the Bills had 10. It should have been 10. Even 10-5 just sounds a little better, but that was my whole point of this game because the penalties killed them. And it's Josh Allen. He has that one turnover or that one throw that you just want to have back. Kind of seems to be the story of his career at this point because I believe he's now 0 and
Oh, and
4,
six, I think
0 and
actually.
6
Mhm.
in overtime games. So NFL changed the rules for him, and he kind of hasn't capitalized on that opportunity. So I don't know. I mean, yeah, I know you must be happy that the Bills are kind of almost dead in the water at this point.
Well, yeah, obviously happy. The AFC is going to be tight. Seeding is important, but we are going for the division. And now, what, 8-3 versus 6-6? That's a big difference, right? Um, I mean, they're still not dead. So I'm not going to make any assumptions. I still think a good football team, they can get hot at any time. I could see them easily rallying off 4 wins in a row. Uh, so I'm not gonna, make any statements that they're absolutely done. But to me, this game, like you said, when there's two really good teams, sometimes it comes down to one play, one call. Um, but I must say, Matt, that this game gave me the feeling a little bit more of that Eagles team we saw last year. And I'm just concerned maybe that everyone missed their chance to beat the Eagles, like when they weren't looking as good, offensively. Like I said, they didn't seem like that juggernaut. But hey, they put up 37 points this game. And they got the touchdown at the end when it mattered, right? The Buffalo defense was really good, held them off early, but they figured it out in that second half. And if we get this second half Eagles offense, I think that is going to be a scary sight for the NFC moving forward. We'll still have to see, but I just thought that second half was their best, football they played offensively um, this season. And so, the Bills, I mean, they got the field goal in overtime, but you just hold them to a field goal and you still give Josh Allen a chance, right? But give credit to the Eagles. They went, 75 yards, got the job done with Jalen Hurts. So I'm just thinking like, oh man, did everyone miss their window to beat the Eagles when they didn't look as good, here and there? But they're still like kind of beating themselves up to a certain extent. I mean, Jason Kelsey, when do you ever see him make mistakes? Right? He has two false start penalties on the last drive that
The
nearly
regulation
pushed.
drive.
Yeah, sorry, in regulation. That game tying drive that nearly puts them out of field goal range. Luckily, Jake Elliott, arguably, I think now
That was one
might
of the
be
clutchest kicks I've ever
might
seen.
be yeah. Not only was that one of the clutchest kicks, but I mean, I think he might be taking over Justin Tucker as the best kicker in the league. Him and Young Wei Koo, I think, are the two guys you could argue probably the best kickers in the league right now. But how money was that kick, right, from Jake Elliott? And so, yeah, I just thought, wow, to do that in the rain, in that circumstance. Because game tying versus like, when it's a tied game and you can miss and oh well, you still have a shot at overtime. But to hit that, I mean, even Jalen Hurts and Jason Kelsey were shaking their heads because they know, like, here's Jake Elliott bailing them out again for not executing on offense. So I don't know. This team just they find a way to win. Got to give them credit. They are 10-1. It's hard to win 10 games out of your first 11 in the NFL. So, um, hey, I do tip my cap to the Eagles. I don't think they're a bad team, right? I think they're a good team, and I think if they start to get hot moving forward down the stretch, like that's going to be scary for other teams. So
I don't think the Eagles, I would even argue your point. Like, I don't think that was their best offensive showing of the game because I would make the argument saying the Bills defense in that fourth quarter and when
mm,
that late those last drives was terrible. Like terrible defense.
maybe just gassed. I don't know.
Well, I just think especially in the last two drives, right? That last drive going into overtime and then, obviously the last drive in overtime. The Eagles or the Bills were up three. Actually, they're up three in both of those drives. So the Eagles, right? They're playing for the field goal, just trying to get into scoring position, especially at regulation. But I just thought the Bills were just giving them pitch and catch all the way down until Jason Kelsey kind of put them back a little bit with the false starts. But prior to that, they were just getting 7, 8 yards, seven again, out of bounds, right? And then on third down, third and short, you got your corners playing like 7 yards back. It's like, what are you doing? Like, Devontae just runs a simple 4 yard hitch route, pitch and catch, first down. Like, I just think the scheme for the Bills was pretty bad because I know they were trying to defend against the touchdown. But the one thing the Bills have is you could make the case, the best safety tandem in the league. Jordan Poyer, Micah Hyde. Keep those two guys back, right? They're going to play center field, right? Control the air in a deep ball. But you got to bring your corners up to take away the short 7, 8 yard routes because if you get beat, well, that's okay because I got safety help over the top and I got two guys, veteran guys that I trust. But to the Eagles' credit, right? They took what the defense gave them, moved down the field, and got into scoring position. At the late game of the regulation, and then also to win it in overtime. So I think it's a little bit of both, but yeah, I was more disturbed by the way the Bills were playing defense. But I don't know, Sean McDermott. All right, you better watch out, man.
Yeah, he's on the hot seat, I
You better
think.
watch out. I
I
mean, even
agree.
his comments at the end, like, you call a timeout to try to ice Jake Elliott, but it's like, why don't you save that timeout to give Josh Allen a chance? Two timeouts, 20 seconds. We've seen Patrick Mahomes do crazy. Like Josh Allen is more than talented enough to do that. So to not give him a shot, I don't know. That sends a bad message to me to the players in the locker room.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. I missed that one. But yeah, I think McDermott definitely on the hot seat. And just to wrap up NFL talk, Matt, speaking of hot seats, we have our first official firing
Oh
of
god.
the year. Forgot to bring this one up, but Frank Reich done in Carolina. And oh my goodness, to me, this is like complete disaster from the Carolina Panthers for the past year. I mean, you know, you could argue going into the offseason, probably the worst case scenario for them, I think, right? Look at it. Let's go back from the start, right? They hire Frank Reich. Okay. Rumors are he wanted CJ Stroud. A lot of the staff wanted CJ Stroud, but David Tepper, the owner, was high on Bryce Young, right? And to be honest, so are we. We were higher on Bryce Young than CJ Stroud just from college tape and all that stuff. Looking back, obviously, CJ Stroud, the better physical NFL prospect, right? I don't think anyone could argue that there. But from what we saw, Bryce Young, that winning gene, clutch gene, whatever you want to say, that's what we saw at Alabama. And that's what we have not seen so far this year. And so I don't know exactly what's going on in Carolina. It's hard to say, right? His rookie year, he's going to struggle, right? But it's just so puzzling to me that they fire Frank Reich like now. I mean, I don't understand what is going on because you hire him to kind of coach up Bryce Young. Same with Josh McCown, longtime NFL vet. You bring him in, and yeah, we knew this year was going to be bad. We knew that. We're not surprised by the record at all. But I don't understand. I don't know if it's the GM. I don't know if it's the owner. Like whose decision it was to fire Frank Reich because they don't have a good offensive line. I think one of the worst in the league. Can't run the ball. Your number one weapon is Adam Thielen, and you have a rookie quarterback. Like, what do you expect from this offense, right? Uh, like even to give Bryce Young a little bit of slack, like what do you expect him to do? Let alone, you put almost any other quarterback in that position, right? What do you expect from that quarterback, let alone a rookie in that situation with their defense is I think a little bit better than people think but not a top tier defense I would say. So like just I'm confused, Matt, because you gave everything up, right? You have no picks, you gave up all your capital, and now you can't build off of it. And now the guy who was supposed to right the ship or kind of at least steer the ship in the right direction is gone. And I don't it's just puzzling to me. I hope we hear more about this maybe in the off season or something that went on because I don't get it. Um, and I just wanted to. What is your reaction to this news? Because I don't even know what's going on.
I mean, I'm shocked that it happened. Like you said, at this point, maybe make a change after the season. There's things behind the scenes that we don't know about. But to do it this abruptly, it seems like he was. What was the owner's name? Tepper, David Tepper.
Yeah,
It's like they said, it was reported, he dropped an F bomb, like walking out of the game, right? Kind of upset, but kind of seems like a emotional decision. I feel like just because you're angry, okay, I'm gonna make a change now. But what did you expect? You have the first pick in the draft for a reason. You're not gonna win the Super Bowl this year, realistically. So you got to go through a little bit of growing pain, I would think. But I just think this sends a bad message now for whoever the next coach is going to be. Because who's going to want to come coach the Panthers now when your owner just says, forget it. 11 games in, you didn't do what I expected to. Like, there's no leeway, there's no accountability, no trust factor. So, for Bryce Young's sake, like, how is he going to get a good coach that wants to go in that situation? Like, for example, Dan Quinn probably going to be, a head coach candidate again in the offseason. You don't think if Dan Quinn had to choose between being the head coach at Carolina or coming back to Dallas to be the DC, might not get paid as much, which one would he pick? I think he would pick, or most people would pick, staying in Dallas in this case, in a comfortable situation where you're thriving, the coaches trust you, they believe in you, the owner believes in you, versus a chaotic situation. So I'm just saying, for a good quality coach for Bryce Young, how are they going to get that now? Because it feels like Frank White, kind of a respected guy in the league, and has had a track record of working with capable quarterbacks in the NFL. So to give up on him that fast, that's a sour note for the Panthers organization. That was just my initial reaction. I
yeah,
don't really
I
care about the Panthers. I'm not a Panthers fan at all, but for the sake of Bryce Young, eh, I don't know. He might be a bust just because now he might have the worst ownership slash coaching situation out of all the rookies at this point.
yeah, I agree. And I want to do a rookie rundown thing at the end of the year, when we're going through all of our NFL talks and stuff. But really quick on Bryce Young, the vibe I'm gonna get right now is so much gets put on the quarterback for how their career turns out. But it if we're being honest, if you follow football and you kind of understand a little bit more than just what you see on TV, it really is a situation you go to. I mean, I hate to, say it, but a player can only play as good as their players around them and, kind of the leadership and how the organization runs. And I'll just say because I followed the two Hawaii guys, and I think at critical points in their career, uh, went the opposite ways, right? And so similar thing, uh, kind of questions around Marcus and Tua early in their careers. Are they the guy? Can they be the guy? Both high draft picks, right? Can they be the guy? I don't know. Like Marcus's way, people don't talk about this, but his first 4 seasons, 4 offensive coordinators, right? 3 different head coaches. People don't talk about that. But they bring in a defensive minded head coach, Mike Vrabel. That's not Marcus isn't his guy, right? He starts to not do good. They pull him. Ryan Tannehill goes in. We know the rest of that story, right? Tua, kind of the flip side, right? He has Brian Flores there. We now know Brian Flores was, pretty harsh on Tua with all the things we've gotten to hear um, since he's been let go. But harsh on Tua, right? They start as Tua the guy we don't know. Flores is gone. Now Mike McDaniel comes in, and what does he do? Completely turns the system around, the culture around, and Tua around, right? Puts a scheme around his players, not a this is my scheme. You're gonna fit this. He takes a look at their offense. Okay, we got speed. We got a guy that can throw with accuracy, anticipation. Let's put this system in place because that's what they do well. Marcus, he was an RPO guy in college. He's athletic, right? Tennessee tried to turn him into a pocket passer. And we see how that turned out. The 1 year, good year he had, he was getting outside the pocket. He was throwing the ball like on the run. He was using his legs. And I think that's what is going to come down to Bryce Young, whether the ownership does something similar like that. Are you going to put a coach at, like you said, is it going to be a respected guy, a guy that has a lot of options? Probably not. It's probably going to have to be something like Mike McDaniel was to the Dolphins, right? Like a up and comer, one of these like not brainiacs, but dare I say a Kellen Moore, someone that is gonna have to like I'm just saying, right? Like someone that it's a little bit riskier, but that's probably the guys you're gonna look at to completely turn the whole situation around, right? Because to me, like you said, Bryce Young is your most valuable asset, no matter how you spin it. What you gave up to get him, and what you've invested just to into him in his development is the most critical thing for your team moving forward. If you didn't feel like Frank Reich or Josh McCown or that staff was doing a good job of molding Bryce Young into an NFL quarterback or an elite talent, so be it. But the next guy you get has to be all about Bryce Young, just like Mike McDaniel was all about Tua. Because it's possible. We saw that the turnaround is possible. Bryce Young was the number one pick for a reason, right? Even if he wasn't number one, he was going to go, in that first round. He was a first round talent. And so I think the talent is still there. But, unfortunately for Bryce, I think it's kind of out of his hands how his career in Carolina is going to go. If they get the right guy, that'll be good for him. If they don't, that just might be it. Like honestly, we've seen it with Marcus. I mean, dare I even say Baker, right? He didn't always have like guys in his position, but yeah. So that was my kind of like takeaway from the Frank Reich thing. It'll be interesting to see who they hire next year because I think Bryce Young's career is gonna be in the hands of that man. So
I agree.
uh, yeah. So anyway, sorry that football NFL talk went kind of long. Why don't we get to a quick break here and then we'll continue with college football. Okay, so enough NFL talk. Let's get to some college football. and UH's season officially concluded. One of the most UH games ever. Of course, I wasn't watching. I was keeping up though. You were watching. Uh, Obviously, got to talk about the ending. I mean, what a Hawaii football way to end not only the game but really end their season under this, the second season of the Timmy Chang era. I don't think anything could be summed up better in a series of events than that last drive, Matt. So you were there, you were watching, you
My
felt all the
God.
emotion live. Well, I mean, not in person, but you were watching it on TV. Give me what was going through your mind on that final drive.
I think everybody, well, we're at Uncle Gerald's and everybody's going crazy. And I think I was the only one that was not cheering because I was laughing because of how ridiculous that last, you could say 13 seconds was. But I'll even go back a little bit to the drive before when Colorado State had the ball and they were down 8 and it was a fourth and I think it was like 4th and 8 or something like that. Game is on the line, right? Defense, you get one stop, ices the game, and then they give up. They give up a touchdown. Like I don't even know what was that, like a 70-yard touchdown or something ridiculous. Like I just that was when I was in shock. I was like, what just happened?
Yeah, 70-yard touchdown on fourth and
70
eight.
yard touchdown.
On 4th and 8.
4th and 8, and they bring a cover zero blitz, a cover zero, kind of like what the Eagles did, except the receiver and the quarterback were on the same page, But I just go back to that, and it's like you weren't watching the game, but the whole time throughout the game, UH they were rushing on third downs, right? It seemed like every third down they're rushing 3 guys. And I'm like, what are you guys doing? Like it's like 3rd and 3, they rush 3 guys. He has all day to throw, and then they end up getting the first down. But it's like you rush 3 guys on 3rd and 3. It's not 3rd and 15 now. It's 3rd and 3, third and medium, and you're rushing 3 guys. And the one time they actually bring pressure, they, they bring 7, and then you got 4 guys in coverage. You leave somehow Peter Monema is on Torrey Horton, who is their best receiver, one of the best receivers in the conference. You leave him one on one with Peter Monema. Like what? What? Like first off, I mean we can talk about this with Hunter. I'm not a huge fan of Peter Monema already at safety. I think he's a valuable asset on the defense, just not in the proper position. But how do you allow a safety matched up on other team's wide receiver run, and you decide to go on a cover zero blitz? Wouldn't that be the time to, yeah, you can bring pressure, but does it have to be 7 guys rushing? Heck, 5. I mean, 5 is good enough. I think you can get home just to rush the pass a little bit, but to bring an all out pressure where you allow guys one on one coverage, that's putting them in a danger zone. So that's like classic ERH, right? The one time they're supposed to blitz, or the times they're supposed to blitz, they don't. The one time they do, they get burned. And then, that last drive, just, I don't even know. Like, I don't even want to imagine what it would have been like if Shipley misses that kick. Because I just think all hell would have broken loose. And it just would have been a sorry way to lose, especially in the last game.
Well, at least it was
And
tied. So
it was tied. No, they were down. Oh no, yeah, you're right. You're right. It was tied. It was tied. But you don't think he misses the kick? Just the way that whole operation was, I would have bet they lost in overtime if that same procedure happened and he misses the kick. I just think the momentum would have been all on Colorado State. They just came back. They were down 14 in the fourth quarter. They come all the way back. They get the 2-point conversion. You botch the late game execution. and they have all the momentum. So I'm gonna pick the hot team. It's not like UH has a raucous home crowd, that's just gonna turn the tide. But just that last, I mean, you can give your take too, but I just think that is 100% coaching, 100% in that late game execution. I mean, the thought is Chucky Hines catches the pass, he goes out of bounds, and the clock stops. But I mean, as a receiver, shouldn't you kind of know like where you are on the field? Like, either way, it's a first down. So why are you trying to like kick a field goal with 8 seconds left? I still think, say the clock stops, you can still run a play. Maybe, if there's no look, throw it away, right? You're kind of in field goal range, just throw it away. But maybe you can try run a play to get 5 yards to get a little bit closer for Shipley, who was struggling that game. He shanked one at the end of the half and he got a kick blocked. So he wasn't having the best, Matthew Shipley-esque game. So you try to get him an easier look. And this is kind of like that Monday night game. Remember the Bills and the Broncos, when the Broncos, they kind of like rushed everyone onto the field to try to get the operation down. They missed the kick. That's what it looked like, but it looked worse because at least the Broncos had about 20 seconds. UH had 8. And I just think that's 100% coaching, because you should be telling your guys, hey, we get a first down. Like, we're not going to rush the field goal unit on in 8 seconds. If the clock is running, that's okay. Don't panic, right? Shager, call a play. You got 8 seconds, get set, clock the ball. That's the worst case scenario that what should have happened. And Shipley would have been able to kick the field goal with 3 seconds left for the win. And just line up, set up how he normally does, go through his routine, and drill it. But I just think that is 100% on Timmy Chang. You cannot allow that to happen. That just means your guys weren't prepared for that late game execution. But I don't know what you think, kind of seeing
So that
everything, reading
okay,
everything.
so I saw the play. I've seen it multiple times now, right? And I think so. I agree. Like, yeah, okay, coaching, right? We'll get to more of the defensive stuff. 70-yard touchdown. We can talk about all that next week with Hunter, right? But going into that, so that last possession, so you say, yeah, they should have kept the offense on the field, right? Maybe run one more play, get a little bit closer. I agree with that. But to me, the whole thing was doomed. And I don't know whose fault this was. I don't know if it's the ref's fault for not communicating well with the coach, like Timmy Chang, or Timmy assuming we got out of bounds and sending the field goal kicker out there. But actually, we got obviously extremely lucky. But if you think about it, the blunder that he had of sending the field goal team out there actually like ended up to be in our favor because, right? Think about it. If he thinks okay, let's run one more play to get a little bit closer. He thinks the clock had stopped, right? Because that's the only reason he runs a field goal team out there. He doesn't run it out there if he thinks it's a running clock with 8 seconds left. Let's be honest, right? He's not going to do that. I don't even think he would do that, right? Um, but he run so if he kept the offense out there, let's say he's running a play, he's telling Shager, okay, get the play and get the play. We start to see the clock start to go down. 7, 6. I don't think Braden Shager, to be honest, would have the presence of mind to run up in 8 seconds, get everyone set to clock the ball, even with everyone screaming, "Clock it! The clock's running! The clock's running!" I think he'd probably just have like, I could see them like running their whatever 4 yard out, and that's how we end the game to go into overtime. Honestly, right? Like you got to think it's so fast in that last play, and so we honestly got pretty lucky that Timmy thought that the clock had stopped and just sent the field goal team out there regardless. And just, I don't know how else to say it besides we got lucky. Like, we got lucky that he happened to send the team out. Maybe even the wrong decision ended up being the right decision. So in that scenario, but to me, it's pretty inexcusable. I don't know who's at fault, but how do we as in Hawaii, not understand that the clock was running there after the first down? Like, was there no signal that he got out of bounds? Right? There was no, was it not communicated? Did we just assume? I don't know what, but that to me, that is the biggest blunder right there because that kind of dictated that whole sequence of events. Luckily, we get bailed out. It's probably better. Honestly, Shipley didn't have time to think about it. He had to just had to run up, kick the ball,
That's true.
right? Um, just a complete like Hawaii Timmy Chang era way to end our like the second season to me because miss like we're up, we're at home, right? Senior night. Oh, it's looking good. We're up big. Um, all we have to do is not let up a touchdown and a 2 point conversion, and we win the game. Send a zero, huh? Safety on their best receiver. What? He hits him in stride to go to the house. Oh my! And they get the 2 point conversion. Oh, here we go. Lo and behold, poor clock management or whatever miscommunication at the end of the game somehow get bailed out on a 51-yard field goal. Like they didn't even have the right camera angle set on Spectrum
I know it
to
was like
show what
a
was going
side to
on because
side
no one
view.
knew what was going on. They were still raising the net as the kick was on the way. I was just like, but hey, it worked out, and all that years from now, we'll look at Timmy Chang and his record and say, hey, they were 5-8. They were one game off of a bowl game in his second year, right? We saw the improvement, and we'll get to this next week when like we get to talk to Hunter. But I just think the 5-8 record is so deceiving of how this team has played all year
We're the
because
worst 5-8 team in the
we
country.
might be the worst 5-8 team in the country, but we somehow got to 5 wins, denied Colorado State a chance at their bowl game. And so I don't know, man. It's just comedy. Like you literally couldn't write a funnier script of how to end like this year. With how this year has
That's
went,
why I was cracking up when the kick happened. Everybody's cheering, like, "Oh my gosh, we won!" I'm just sitting there cracking up. Like, what did I just watch?
yeah. And so, well, we'll see.
Oh my goodness.
We'll talk about the offseason and all that stuff next week with Hunter. But yeah, what a hilarious way to end this second season of the Timmy Chang era. Um, yeah, just only UH, man. Only UH could do something like that.
Only
Um,
UH.
well, we got a lot of college football, Matt. So let's continue to press on here. Civil War, Oregon State. This time in Eugene at Alton. Got a little bit of revenge from last year, right? Bo Nix finally healthy, took care of business against Oregon State. Um, we were watching that game, kind of got out of hand pretty quick, I would say. Um, but yeah, how are you feeling going into the Pac-12 championship game against Washington?
I mean, as an Oregon fan, I feel great because they're playing well at the right time. They play Washington, the Pac-12 championship. They're kind of skating by these last few games. So, that's where you want them to be, right? Kind of unsure of themselves. They kind of lose their identity. Oregon, you know, they've hit their stride, honestly, ever since that Washington game. And, you know, to cap it off with a Civil War victory, quite maybe, who knows? Might be the last one ever. I hope not. But I said this last week. So Blaze, I gave you a warning. I said we're gonna beat them down. And what can I say? I pretty much called it. I've been calling it for a year. Bo Nix was not healthy last year. That changes the offense for Oregon. And we can clearly see he was healthy. And when he can move around and extend plays, This team is hard to stop because they are that explosive on offense. I mean, he had that Heisman-esque moment. He kind of gets out of a sack, rolls out, throws across the field to Troy Franklin for a touchdown. Kind of a Heisman-esque kind of play right there. But, to the Oregon's defense credit, they were the reason why we won this game. Last year, they got run on 2 plays, inside zone, outside zone, or a stretch. They got gashed. This year, that was not the case. You hold Oregon State to what, 53 yards rushing. You hold Damian Martinez to 38 yards rushing. Yeah, I mean, you're going to win a lot of games, especially against Oregon State, because they're not built to play from behind. DJ, he has the hype, the name, but he's not Bo Nix right now. He's not a quarterback that's going to, drop back 30, 40 times a game and lead a comeback. That's just not how they're built. They're built to play with the lead, built to control the clock, play in one possession games, and just kind of dominate you physically. But you take that run game away and you make DJ throw it, yeah, they're not gonna move the ball. They're not gonna move the ball. And that's kind of what happened. DJ was not effective. The pass rush was getting home. The run defense was there. And then offensively, right? Bo Nix was bodacious. He was spectacular. So kind of what I expected. I didn't think it was going to be a 24-point win, honestly, but I expected Oregon to dominate offensively and control the game defensively, but they flat out dominate. So going into the Pac-12 championship, we can talk about this, with this whole playoff situation. They're exactly where you want to be. It's a win or go home situation. What more could you ask for, honestly? That's exactly where you want to be in this time of year if you're a national championship contending team. And for both Washington and Oregon, it's kind of like, yeah, they needed this matchup because that first game, Washington kind of got let off the hook a little bit to some degree, you can say. And Oregon, they were at Washington, but who knows? On a neutral site, you got arguably the two guys in the Heisman Trophy race right now at quarterback dueling it out. This could be obviously for the Pac-12 championship, the birth to the playoff, and for the Heisman. I mean, this is just college football at its best. So for Oregon, it's simple. You win and you're in. Win and you're in. You accomplished what you had to do. Everything else after that would be gravy. But you got to take care of business on Friday because you worked so hard to get there and you got a loss in there. So it's all on the line at this point, and you got to feel good, I think, as a Ducks fan with the way that they're playing right now. They're hitting their stride, and let's bring it on. Let's bring on those Huskies and send them home. They're talking a lot of trash up in Seattle right now, so I'm excited to put that to bed on Friday.
Okay. Well, let's get into it then. You already brought it up. CFP coming down to the home stretch here. Got all the championship games coming up this weekend. Let's start it simple. That only 4 teams are getting in. After this weekend, who do you like? Who are your 4 teams that you see moving on to play for the championship?
Are you saying after the championships are played?
Yeah, after the
Okay.
championship weekend, what is your prediction?
All right. I'm gonna go. Well, obviously, I'm gonna pick Oregon, so they're one. That's a Pac-12 championship winning in for both teams. The other teams, I'm gonna go with Georgia. I think Georgia beats Alabama, so they'll get in. I think Michigan wins against Iowa. I think they're the better team, better quarterback too. McNamara versus McCarthy, the ex-Michigan guy who lost his job to McCarthy. So kind of a ironic story there, but I think Michigan handles the business with Harbaugh coming back on the sidelines. But that last team, I was debating about it, but I'm gonna pick Texas. I'm gonna pick Texas because I see Alabama losing, so that knocks them out. Ohio State, right? They lose to Michigan, one of the best games of the year in a non-championship game. So they're kind of knocked out unless absolute chaos happens. But I think Florida State gets upset. I think they get upset against Louisville. That's going to knock them out. They're playing with a backup quarterback. And I think Texas beats Oklahoma State. So they have that trump card over Alabama. They beat them in Tuscaloosa. I think they sneak in as the number 4 team. So it would be Georgia versus Texas and then Michigan versus Oregon. That's my playoff prediction.
Georgia versus Texas and Michigan versus something. Okay, so I'm with you on Georgia, Michigan, and honestly, Oregon, because I think, like you said, neutral site. We'll see how neutral it is, but neutral site. I think Oregon is playing better football than Washington right now. I mean, Washington just barely squeaking by Washington State and Oregon State, right? So I'm leaning a little bit more towards Oregon right now. So I'm rolling with Oregon. My fourth team, this is tough. Because honestly, I think that Florida State does not win, right? Without Jordan Travis. I mean, I just haven't seen enough. Been keeping up with them a ton, but without Jordan Travis, I think that's a big loss for them. But I think, do you still give the nod to Ohio State though? You think Texas edge like gets a little bit of the edge over Ohio State? That's what you're dealing with right now.
In that situation, I would say yes because they're a conference champion. That's
Okay,
kind of
so
like their trump card,
that
right? Versus
see,
Ohio State.
I'm actually, but not even between Ohio State. Okay, so if Oregon barely beats Washington, Washington is
Ooh, you
only a
think
one
Washington
loss team.
stays in?
Honestly,
Ooh,
I
that's
think it's
spicy.
tough. I
That's
think it's
spicy.
gonna be either Washington or Texas because I have Georgia winning over Alabama, right? If Texas, I think it's gonna depend on performance between Texas and Washington. If Washington loses by two or more scores, I think they're out. But I think if it's another classic, just like that last game they played, and Texas
Ooh,
just
that's
barely squeaks by Oklahoma State, right? Like, I don't know. Washington has been, they've been there, done that all year. And if they just barely get beaten out in a close one, I think Washington stays in at 4 and maybe you bump Oregon to
okay.
3. Oh, but
That's
but
spicy.
okay, see that's what I think I could see happening. Do I think that it'll happen? Probably not, just because I think Texas has, honestly, we'll get into it, but more money, more fans. I think they're gonna bring a little bit more, and they want to see parity. So I could see it being Texas if they win and Washington loses, but I think it should be Washington, honestly. Um,
Oh, that's
if if
spicy.
if it's a close game, if it's a close game, a really good game between Oregon and Washington, I think the Pac-12 has been difficult all year. Washington has, done their thing. Um, Not taking anything away from Texas, right? But I mean, they have the big win over Alabama. That's kind of why it's so hard for me, that win over Alabama. Um, but I mean, I don't know, like they barely beat TCU there. Um, it's so tough to me because if I'm looking at schedule, Washington, I think has a little bit more of an impressive schedule, right? Oregon State, Utah, USC, the win over Oregon, all ranked teams versus the Texas strength of schedule. You got the Alabama one, but they lost to Oklahoma in the Red River rivalry. And other than that, who have they really beaten? Assuming they beat Oklahoma State, you know, uh, Kansas was ranked. They've kind of fallen off. Kansas State was ranked. They also kind of have fallen off, right? So it's so tough to me, man. I mean, Um,
So like if I was just playing it out, like I had those four teams, I would say like the first two out would be Ohio State, Washington. I feel like that would be like my first two guys out. Like Ohio State, they're they're not dead, but they
See, I
need
agree. I agree.
they need help. And
I
I don't
think,
think they're gonna get enough because I think Texas is gonna win.
okay. I also think Ohio State and Texas would be the first ones out, right? Obviously. Um, but okay, there's a ton of scenarios that can happen, right? So nothing is decided. Let's say it's the most chaotic thing that could happen, right? So we'll play worst case scenario. Worst case. This is worst case for the CFP
Committee.
committee. Okay. So Georgia loses to Alabama, right? Next one, Michigan somehow gets upset against Iowa. Pac-12 winner, let's say Oregon wins because now Washington has the loss, right? Florida State loses and Texas wins and Alabama wins, right? By default.
You said
So
Florida State loses. I think if Florida
Florida
State
State,
loses, they're out. But
yeah,
if
they're
they
probably out.
win, then there's kind of like,
Okay, yeah, that's
what do
probably
you
better
do?
actually. You're right.
Right?
They win. They win. So then you have a Georgia one loss team, Michigan one loss, Washington one loss, Florida State undefeated, Oregon Pac-12 champs. You still got Ohio State sitting there, one loss, Texas at one loss, and Alabama at one loss. That's seven teams right there that you could like
Jeez.
contend. I mean, eight teams honestly that you could contend to be in there. If that is like doomsday for the CFP people, but we want to like let's just play devil's advocate. If something like that were to happen, what do you think? I think
Jeez, man.
I
Like
think Georgia's gonna stay. I think Georgia would have to stay, honestly. Um, even with the loss, I think they'd have to stay. But I do think that would mean Alabama sneaks in.
yeah.
If Alabama wins, I think you have to give them the four seed, and maybe drop
That's
Georgia
the
to like the
yep.
two, right? Um,
See,
if
that's the game that everybody's gonna root against Alabama, right? Because if they win, it's hard to
yeah,
not
that
put
one
them
is a
in.
big one. That's a big one for
That's
sure.
the game that's gonna really mess things up,
Mhm.
I think. But I feel like I don't know, like Georgia, I like
I don't know
Alabama
if you
gotta be
do.
Alabama theoretically, shouldn't they be ranked over Georgia if they beat them? Because they would both have the same record. One is the SEC champ, the other isn't. So I would think Alabama would have to be higher than
Maybe
Georgia.
like the three versus the four.
3 and 4. Like you don't want to see them play again in the first round in the
Right,
playoff, like
right,
for
exactly.
ratings,
They'd have to either be, yeah,
like
like
2, 3, 3, 4, something like that.
yeah, yeah.
So then I would have to pick the Pac-12 champ.
I
Just
think the Pac-12 champ, no matter what,
yeah,
is getting in.
it's a
I
win
think
and
that is
in.
solidified.
So you got those two. See, but the Florida State thing is so tricky
Okay,
because they deserve to be in because they're undefeated, but
yeah,
there's no Jordan Travis.
here's my question then to you, Matt. If Florida State does go undefeated, right? But Texas wins, Alabama wins, and you still have the winner of the Pac-12 championship. That's too many. That's too many. Would you
Right.
consider bumping Florida State out as an undefeated team for an Alabama, right?
If Yeah, if I was the committee, I would, and it's unfortunate because it's just because of the injury. Because you have to take into account factors like that. Because you're trying to pick the quote unquote four best teams at the time to compete for the national championship. Can you really say Florida State is one of the four best teams in the country without the starting quarterback? I don't think so.
Yeah.
They haven't, their offense is not explosive, right? They got weapons, Keon Coleman, they got Wilson on the outside, decent run game, but you need a quarterback. It's just like the NFL. To win in the playoffs, you need a quarterback. And you're not going to win with a backup quarterback. in the college football playoff.
I agree.
But I think you gotta knock them out. I just think it's unfortunate, but you gotta knock them out. So that
Okay.
leaves okay. That's Alabama.
Okay, wait here. We'll do this, Matt. To make it simpler. So there's 8 teams, right? We're really talking about here. Let's go 1 through 8. What needs to happen for each team to get in? Right? What do you think
Okay,
needs to happen? I think that's the simplest way we can cover all the bases at one time. All right. So obviously Georgia, Michigan, easy, right? They win, they're in.
right.
Next one, Washington, same thing. They win, they're in. Florida State, I think they need status quo, right? So they need Georgia, Michigan, and Washington to win. Or actually, honestly, even Oregon. They need that one doesn't matter, but they need Georgia and Michigan to win, right? Um,
Right.
and if Oregon stomps Washington, you know, convincingly, I think if Florida State um wins convincingly, I think the score is going to matter for that one too. They win convincingly. I think you still got to give them the nod over a one-loss Texas team, honestly. Like even if Texas wins, it's tough because I think it's like that Alabama year with Bryce Young, where Texas probably is the better team, but undefeated ACC champ, like you can't not give them the nod. I think, unfortunately for Texas, so that's what I think has happened for Florida State.
So
I don't know if you
basically,
agree with that.
they just gotta. You're saying the favorites just gotta win.
Yeah, they need the favorites to win,
Okay.
and if Texas loses, that then it
Then that
completely
okay, yeah, that's
clears
nothing.
them, right? Next
But
one,
then
Oregon.
there's
Yeah,
there's a
see,
win. I think Oregon, Washington win and
yeah,
in. That's a
winning
simple
in
one.
either one,
Yeah,
winning in. Yeah, if Oregon loses, they don't have a
they're
chance.
done. Yeah.
Yeah, they're done. Ohio State, so they're the tough one. They need chaos. They need a ton of chaos here. So, but to me, the biggest thing is I almost they need Michigan to win, actually. Because if Michigan is the one that loses, that makes Ohio State look worse, right? So they kind of
Yeah.
need Michigan to put on a good show and win. And then they're gonna need Florida State to lose or Georgia to lose, I think. Like badly though.
I think you need Georgia to win, I would say, to beat
Oh,
Alabama
actually, no,
bad.
you're right. You're right. You're right.
Because
Yeah,
if
you need.
Alabama sneaks in, they're gonna leave out Georgia, two-time defending
Yeah,
champs. I
no,
don't
that's
know. That's
true.
a tough one.
So you
So I
probably
think they
they're
need
probably
Georgia
just
to
banking
win.
on they need Florida State to lose
You need Florida State and Texas to lose, I
and
think.
Texas to lose.
I think that's what you
So you
need.
think Texas gets the nod because if they win, they have the edge. So it sounds
I
like out of
think
the
so.
one loss teams, Texas wins, they have the most to gain, right?
Yeah, I guess so, because I don't think they don't control their own destiny
Yeah.
at this point.
They need a loss.
The only one loss team that control I should say two, I should say. The two one loss
Oregon,
teams, Oregon and
Alabama.
Alabama. They
Yeah.
control their destiny. Win and you're in. I feel like especially Alabama. I think it's so hard to not put them in if they beat Georgia.
Oh, this is madness. Yeah.
This is
Okay. So
crazy.
yeah. So Texas is going to need help, but they need to win, obviously.
Yeah.
And then yeah, we go to Alabama. Yeah, Texas, Alabama. Oh man, this is so hard. So Texas needs, right? They need Georgia to win. They need
Yeah, you gotta knock
Michigan
out
State to
Alabama.
win.
Michigan
Or
wins.
sorry, Michigan to win. You need, I mean, I think, yeah, Pac-12 winner gets in no matter what. They need to put on a good showing and Florida State to lose. And then you give that nod to Texas as a four. I think,
Yeah,
okay, I agree with that. I agree with that.
I
Um,
think so.
and then Alabama is a tricky one. You think it's just as easy as they win and they're in? Or do you think,
I mean, I think so. Like, I don't know. Like, it's so hard because It's because they're playing Georgia too. Like,
right, right.
and they would be this. They would have the same record. and one is the SEC champ, one isn't. But you're gonna knock Alabama out, but they just beat Georgia and they have the
Oh
same record.
man, this is so tough.
That I think that game, Georgia, that's the game that's just gonna cause chaos if
Yeah,
Alabama wins. I think.
yeah, yeah. Ohio State is definitely, I think they have the longest shot to get in.
Oh yeah,
Um,
most definitely.
just because they're not playing this weekend. Like all the other teams play this weekend to like solidify themselves. So
Hmm.
they're getting the most help. And then it sounds like Florida State needs to win, but they still need a lot of help.
I think
Um,
so.
then it's Texas, then it's Alabama, then it's Pac-12 guys take care of business. So it's gonna be
Yeah. As an
man.
Oregon fan, that's why I'm good because you control your own destiny. You beat Washington, they're ranked higher than you anyway. So you beat them, you're in. There's no debate about that. So it's the teams like not really lost Texas. Texas, Florida State, that's the kind of guys you need help, but you gotta put on a good
Yeah,
show too.
yeah,
So
yeah. But yeah, I think Ohio State has the hardest path. I agree with you. I think so. Ohio State, they definitely need Georgia to win. They actually need Michigan to win. I think they need
so
the
too.
Pac-12 winner. I don't think is gonna matter a ton unless it's a really close game. But let's just say they need one of the teams to blow out the other team, right? They need Florida State to lose. They need Texas to lose and
Yeah.
Alabama to
Alabama would
lose.
lose to Georgia.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Ooh, dang.
That's a lot.
That's a long
That's a
shot. They got
lot.
the
Yeah.
longest shot. Yeah, I agree. Okay.
Crazy.
Well, this is crazy. It's going to be a fun weekend to see how it all unfolds. So
Oh yeah.
I'm praying for chaos, though. That would be so, so hilarious.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a lot of college football talk. Uh, we'll see how it goes uh, this weekend. But let's move on from that and get to some UH basketball. So they had two games the past week, won both of them, and won what? Acrisure?
Acrisure Invitational.
All right. Starting the
Yep.
season off
Never
well.
never heard of that tournament before. But they're 5-0. I saw a post from Fox Sports. It was like retweet if your team is undefeated in college basketball in Hawaii. They're on there with some of the blue bloods up there. So it's like, yeah, we're starting pretty good. But I don't think we're playing anybody, strength of schedule wise, that's just gonna catch everyone's eye. Like, oh, UH is dangerous. But you know, like I said, I just need to see some flashes here because at the end of the day for UH, it's the Big West tournament. You got to play well when conference starts. But in this time now with the Diamond Head Classic coming up, who are the guys that are going to establish themselves as key pieces in the rotation? And right now, I mean, looks good. Noel Coleman is looking like what we think Noel Coleman can be, an efficient scorer. He's averaging close to 20 points a game. I think the last game they played, he had a big one, 26 points. So it's good to see him going. But the guy that I was kind of high on after that first game, maybe I was a little too excited because it was the first game. Tom Beatty off the bench. He's kind of been slowing down. Um, but I think that's going to be a key for UH. I think they need 1 to 2 guys a game to give you some kind of spark off the bench. I still think he's got talent, but I think Juan Munoz is going to have to show more flashes, more consistency, I think. Because it's a lot of starting five or bust, at least scoring wise. Um, it's good to see Matthew Cotton finally have a good game. Um, he's the Yale transfer. Hasn't really shown much, but he had one game in the tournament. He kind of broke out. He had 23 points, 5 for 7 from three. So that's going to be a huge sign. And then Justin McCoy, another transfer from North Carolina. Um, I think he's been pretty good. He's been pretty good. And he's kind of like the X factor that I see for this team because I think talent wise, he's probably the best player on the team, just in terms of talent. He's big, he can stretch the floor, He's a stretch four in college basketball. Um, he's a lot more physical than Kamaka Hepa, who he's kind of just taking his place at this point in the rotation. So I like what I'm seeing early. Again, it's more about consistency. But I think his inside game is a lot better. And I think as a big man, you got to have an inside presence. I don't care if you're 7 feet and you can't shoot, or 7 feet and you can shoot the three. You still got to have some kind of inside game, especially in college basketball. Like, you got to be able to dominate inside with size. But he's been okay so far. Jovan, kind of a shaky start, but much better game in that championship game. I think he finished with 17 points, probably his most efficient game. I think he only had 2 turnovers as well. So I think Jovan, he'll be fine. Um, Maybe not gonna expect the big season with all the hype, because right now I think it's Noel Coleman, man. I think this is the guy you go through him. He's playing hot, ride the hot hand. Um, but I still want to see a little more guys off the bench be aggressive. Harry Really Dev, Beatty, Munoz, Morsek. That's kind of like the four guys off the bench, kind of crack their way into the rotation a little bit more. So hopefully we see a little bit more. Next week's going to be a tough one. They go on the road to Utah this week. So kind of their first true road game against a Power Five school. So I think it'll be interesting. Um, but yeah, can't really complain about 5-0. So good start for the Bows.
Yep, good start, and we'll definitely keep track as we get closer to that Diamond Head Classic. But let's move on to some NBA talk. I know we always talk about the Lakers. They got absolutely destroyed tonight, but looking good so far in the in-season tournament kind of thing. I think the games have been more competitive in the in-season tournament, so I think so far it's been a success. But I guess two surprises, Matt. We can talk about the Thunder and the Magic. The Magic sitting at second place in the East. I don't know. We'll see if that's sustainable. Still kind of early on, but man, Bankero, he looks like he's a real deal. And that young core in Oklahoma City, I mean, you got Chet and you got Shea. That's a dynamic 1-2 punch. I think we're gonna start to see develop even more so as the season goes on. But yeah, just don't want to touch on it too much, but I'm happy with how the Lakers have been playing. Um, they're still a little bit up and down to me, but they have a lot of guys banged up right now. So I'm looking forward to seeing, what this team can do. Hopefully we can tread water until we get all our guys back healthy again. So that's just my quick little NBA update there. Um, Baseball talks a little bit heating up. So um, we have Imanaga that's now posted from Japan. A lot of teams will be going after him. Obviously, Yamamoto is available officially now. He was spotted in LA, so maybe that's a good thing for me. Um, Yankees are out on Shohei, so I don't know how you feel about
Yeah.
that. I don't think you're too surprised.
No, I mean, I'm not surprised. I'm not hurt by that, because I think they even said their target is Yamamoto, Soto, and Bellinger, those three. And for me, you got to well, obviously the pitcher, get the pitcher, and you can get one of those outfielders. Not bad of an offseason, I think. But the thing with Otani, I've been saying it a lot. The pitching injury is scary to me. Second time, I think he's getting Tommy John. And if I'm going to pay big bucks for a guy to possibly be the highest paid player in baseball, I don't want him to be a DH, because we already have a guy like that who's just clogging up the payroll, clogging up the spot in the lineup. And it just kind of ruins the ability to kind of get through the regular season. And the Yankees, they already burned themselves with that Stanton signing. You can't do it again with Otani. I mean, there's no place for both of them. So it is what it is, but they got to get Yamamoto. That's their target. So yeah, I've kind of accepted the fact that Shohei is probably going to be on the Dodgers. I will be shocked if he's not on the Dodgers, put it this way.
Yeah, I hope he is because all the hype surrounding it right now. If he goes somewhere else, I'm just gonna be crushed at this point. But uh yeah, Sonny Gray, big contract to the Cardinals, 3 years, 75 mil. It's good for him. He definitely deserved it, I think, after his showing this year. Cardinals are going to be an interesting team to watch, I think. They're kind of stuck in that weird, I don't know if they're rebuilding mode. I don't know if they're going for a mode. I think this kind of indicates, hey, they believe in their talent. Um, Sounds like they probably want to keep Arenado and Goldschmidt around if they're going to sign Sonny Gray. So
And
that
they
would be
got Lance
something.
Lynn too.
Oh yeah, Lance Lynn. So maybe stocking up to make a run this year. And then to close out, Jason Hayward re-signs with the Dodgers. 1 year, 9 mil. Honestly, not upset about it. I think Mookie will be playing a lot more second base again. Because Jason Hayward, I think the bat, you want a little bit more consistency, but he still has that gold glove level defense out there in right field. So, 9 mil, you're not going to complain about that. Would like to see him just more in the outfield though, not DH as much as he did this year. So, hopefully, we'll be seeing him out in right field a lot more. But that'll wrap it up for MLB stuff. Foolish fools, Matt. Why don't you get to your foolish fools here? Uh,
Yeah,
Interesting picks.
yeah. Well, the first I got two. Well, the first one is a team. I mean, we talked about this already. The Jets, kind of, a historical game. You mentioned it, Black Friday game. But I don't think personally I've ever seen somebody return a Hail Mary for a touchdown to end the half. That to me is classic Jets. I don't even know how you allowed that. You just deserve to be on Foolish Fools if you if you do that. But that's the Foolish Fools of the week this week.
Okay. Um, well, State of the 808, my update is congrats to Taulia. We talk about him a decent amount, but he is now the Big Ten passing leader all time. So congrats to
Oh,
him.
wow.
Yeah, pretty big accomplishment there. I mean, to be an
Never would have guessed
all-time,
that.
yeah, all-time conference leader in any type of statistic is impressive, but Big Ten's had some pretty good quarterbacks come through. So for him to be the all-time leader, uh, just goes to show his commitment. 4 years, and hopefully he gets some kind of chance at the next level. I don't know if he'll get drafted, but an undrafted free agency kind of thing, you never know, right? Like a Tyson, uh, Bagent
Agent.
situation. Yeah, you never know. So, but good for him. Securing that, he will forever be in the history books unless someone comes in and breaks that. But I don't know. With how team players are these days, no one really stays out of school for 4 years. So I could see him holding this record for a decent amount of time. Um, okay, that's my state of the 808. Why don't you give us your sports fact of the day?
All right. We are recording on November 27th, so we'll go back to 1966. Uh, this is the highest scoring NFL game. Washington Redskins defeat the New York Giants 72 to 41. Kind of insane that a team scored 70 points, but a team did score 70 points this year, you know, in the Miami Dolphins. So maybe that score will be broken one day. But I also want to give a shout out to Sean Taylor. I saw that this was the 16th anniversary of his passing. One of the greatest defenders in his era. Kind of a tragic, passing for him. So just wanted to shout out him. He's an animal. So rest in peace to one of the
Rest in
greatest.
peace. Yep, he was definitely one of those guys for sure. Um, on that note, okay, well, kind of long pod, but got everything we wanted to talk about. It's going to be an exciting football weekend. So we'll be back next week. Other than that, thank you everyone for listening and watching, and we'll see you guys next week.